Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and welcome to the review of the Netflix action thriller Man on Fire, the new television series that consists of 7 episodes. And yes, it is an adaptation of the 1980 novel by A.J. Quinnell, and it stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as a special forces mercenary suffering from PTSD from his dark past and seeking revenge. This, as I said, is another adaptation. I think there are like 5 different adaptations of Man on Fire. The most popular one that everybody knows is the Tony Scott directed Denzel Washington starring action film from 2004. I believe that's when that film came out. And that's one of my favorite Denzel Washington movies to come out in that little era where he was doing these kind of B-level action films. And I say B-level in all due respect to Denzel Washington. They're B-level action films, but they were elevated to A because of him. And Man on Fire was like that. Man on Fire was just a simple little revenge action thriller, but it was elevated to classic levels because of the great Denzel Washington's performance in that film. And so when we're getting another adaptation, this time brought to us by Netflix in a television format, I was interested to see, maybe more flushing out of the John Creasy character and get more of him exacting revenge on these people who wronged him. So it was very interesting when they announced this. The 2004 film centered around a kidnapping, whereas the TV show that we got on Netflix, it didn't involve a kidnapping. It was more of a political thriller, if you will. And that kind of threw me off, as far as the story being told, because we've seen this particular story. Now, granted, we've seen the kidnapped and one man wrecking crew going to rescue their loved ones or whoever. Yeah, we've seen that as well. But as of late, that's all we get is political thrillers, it feels like, when it comes to our action movie plots. But with all that being said, my driving force to watching these 7 episodes was Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. I'm a big fan of his. He's fresh off of the success of Wonder Man, which a lot of people loved. I didn't, but a lot of people loved that show. And even though I wasn't a big fan of Wonder Man, I can acknowledge that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was good in it. He wasn't the reason why I wasn't a big fan of that show. But I wanted to see him dive into this role of John Creasy, because John Creasy is a very interesting character. And then you're following in the footsteps of Denzel Washington. Now, you can't compare the two. Even though Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is a great actor, I think he's one of the most underrated actors working today, to be honest with you. He's not Denzel, and nobody is. There's only one Denzel. And so I went into this not expecting to see a Denzel Washington clone or impersonation of Denzel Washington as this character. I wanted to see if he can make it his own, and he did. And Yahya Abdul-Mateen did a good job. Good job. Not great, but a good job. But it's only a good job because he wasn't given much to do. And this series, as decent as it was, I'm not hating on it. I don't think it was bad by no stretch. It's very entertaining and a very quick watch. 7 episodes. I think only one of them is like an hour. And I think that's the last episode that's really an hour and 5 minutes or something like that. Every other episode is like 45, 46 minutes or something like that. And so it's a quick watch. Uh, his character was flushed out more than it was in the film. Of course, you had more time to do it, but it still felt like it wasn't enough, because you had to split time with these separate little story elements that were added for the show. And I some of that stuff they could have left alone. I wanted to follow Creasy on this adventure, if you will. I wanted to see more of him interrogating this syndicate or whatever they may be, to get information and exact revenge. It didn't feel like a revenge thriller. It was strictly more of a political thriller. And he was out for revenge. His character was out for revenge, but everything else surrounding it was more political. And his character suffered because of that. I just wanted to see more of John Creasy do John Creasy things that we grew accustomed to from previous adaptations. The show has a weird balance to it. It starts off pretty hot and it ends pretty hot, but somewhere in the middle, it cooled off. It was a slow burn. And it felt like they were just trying to stretch this enough to make a show out of it. It felt like a movie that they just added extra scenes to make it a TV show. That's what it felt like. It didn't need to be a 7-episode series. Our villain or villains that were saved to the end for the big reveal, or the last couple of episodes before the big reveal. You knew it the very first episode. I knew it the first scene. Who the villain was. They did not do a good job of hiding that for a twist ending. They dropped the ball big time. And it has multiple villains and multiple kind of shocks who the reveals are. I saw it coming a mile away. I was so disappointed. I knew it by episode 4 exactly what the whole story was. I knew the whole layout of everything, and it wasn't supposed to be that way. You're supposed to discover as John Creasy is discovering, and unfortunately, with the script and the way the show was directed and structured, everything was revealed very, very early. And that's where I talk about when I say that the characters suffer, because you as an audience, you figured it out, but you have to sit there and watch 2 or 3 more episodes where our hero, our protagonist, is struggling to get the answers, and you already know, and it makes him feel like he's a idiot. Oh, you hadn't figured it out by now? That's the way I was sitting there watching it. I'm like, man, he can't figure this out. He's supposed to be this special forces intelligent agent. I mean, he's supposed to be like the Ethan Hunt of this universe or whatever. He's supposed to be like the creme de la creme of special forces officers, and he couldn't figure this out. And I'm just a lowly nobody who who can figure this stuff out. It was just a simple story that anybody can figure out very, very early. And, sometimes that's good. Sometimes you want to sit down and just watch something. You don't want to think. Sometimes you just want to sit down and enjoy your show, and that's fine. I'm the same way. Sometimes I just want to sit down and watch. I don't want to do homework and think and try to construct things and all this here. I want to be entertained. And so in that sense, Man on Fire would probably be perfect because it's not hard to follow. But when you're dealing with a story that they set up where there's a lot of political corruption and government corruption, and well, same thing, political government, whatever. But I'm trying not to spoil whatever, even though you'll be spoiled pretty early when you watch it. But it's so much going on, you know. It's not that type of show. At least that's not how they set it up to be. They set it up to be this complex, super political thriller, and trying to disguise it as an action film or an action show. And the two just didn't mesh right. You can do it. It is possible to do it, but unfortunately, Man on Fire didn't do it well. But with all that being said, I didn't hate the show. I actually was entertained by the show. I think the action was fairly well, you know, for Netflix standards, you know. it wasn't Matrix level action, but I mean, you know, it was decent action throughout the series. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II gave a really good performance. The supporting cast was really good. There weren't any bad performances by anybody that comes to mind. I think everybody was properly cast in this show and did their part and did it well, you know, did the best they could with the material they were given. And like I said earlier, it's a quick watch. You can blaze through this in one evening, day, afternoon, whenever you want to sit down and watch Man on Fire on Netflix. You can get through it like that. So taking all that into account, Netflix Man on Fire, starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, which is currently streaming on that platform, gets a letter grade of a C+. It's a decent watch. You know, I would go as far to say I would watch it again down the line. I'm not going to run back and watch it immediately, but you know, if I'm looking for something to occupy my mind for a couple hours, hey, I'll pop Man on Fire on again. Unfortunately, I'll probably watch the movie before I watch the TV show again. But to be fair, those were some big shoes to fill. You know, the late great Tony Scott and Denzel Washington performing in that film. I mean, don't compare the two. That's my advice. If you haven't watched it yet, don't go into it trying to compare it to the 2004 film. Just look at it as its own thing, which it is. You know, don't compare Yahya Abdul-Mateen II to Denzel. Don't compare the direction to Tony Scott. Don't do all that. Just look at it as it is, and you'll enjoy it even better. What are your thoughts? If you did see it, what did you like Man on Fire on Netflix? Let me know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also let me know on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Man on Fire, currently on Netflix. I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.